Hey everybody, and welcome to a crash course in watercolor florals. I'm so excited to introduce you to this 3-part series where we will be learning all about painting watercolor florals. We'll be painting this little piece here together, and we're going to be learning techniques and different things that you can use to put together your own watercolor floral arrangements or gouache floral arrangements if that's what you are so inclined. There's 3 parts. We're going to be going over flower shapes, color, and composition. And in composition, we'll put the first 2 together and really make our arrangement. We're going to be using the 2 DIY painting kits from Lavender Chai. You can find them in our Etsy shop. They come with everything you need except a brush. I'm going to be using the watercolor kit today, but you can also follow along with the gouache kit. And yeah, these kits have a lot of purposes. So we're going to be learning all about painting florals, which is a really great way to get started in a watercolor, but I do know it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of components. But for flower shapes, we're going to start off by breaking it into 5 simple shapes, 2 flowers, 2 branches, and 1 leaf, 5 things. It's going to be super simple. Basic shapes. If you can do circles and lines, you should be able to get it. And then we'll put them together into this little piece at the end. So just a reminder that we're going to be using these 2 kits. You can find them in our Etsy shop. It's linked below. So I got my sketchbook here and I'm going to get started showing you our shapes. So I have a couple brushes here before we get started. If you want to learn more about why there are no brushes in our kits, you can find and read about that on our Etsy shop. I've got some two of these number 2 round brushes, which are good for details. I have this water brush, which is great for traveling, and I really like to paint with it. It's about a number 6 round, and I have my other number 4 round brush right here that I'm going to be using for most of this. You really want to make sure you've got a round brush that's pointed for your florals because I feel like that's kind of the best shape. It's going to make it the easiest for you. Flat brushes aren't quite as good. And you can see our 2 shapes here for getting started on our flowers, a circle and an oval. If you can do those 2 shapes, you've got it down. So I've got some paint here. And as you can see, I'm making this really messy blob shape. It's kind of a circle. It's not really a circle. It's just kind of a blob. I'm making little bumps here and there on the sides and stuff. So you can see that it's not perfect in any way. And that's one of the things I really love about painting florals is that no flower is the same. And so your imperfect shapes are what's really going to bring interest and beauty to your painting. And then the second flower we're going to work on are these little ones. I'm just going to paint 3 little ovals here, which they don't really look like flowers yet. You'll see that they'll look like flowers soon. You can just trust me. So next for our branches, we're going to be mainly just using lines. I've got a blue here. The first one, I'm going to draw one long line as the base of the stem, and then from that, I'm going to draw some diagonal lines at an angle going out from the main stem. And I'm drawing them in pairs on either side. And then from those, I'm branching off into more little diagonal lines. Almost kind of reminds me of a snowflake and how we do the lines. But it's really simple, just straight lines. They're branching off of each other in the same sort of angled pattern in pairs of 2. And you can go as small as you want or as simple as you want to make your branch more or less dense. And so you can see there, I'm adding on some more little ones. And this you can either leave like this once we're done, or we'll go back in and add a little bit more detail so you can kind of turn it into maybe some berries or just add a little bit more. But at this point, our branch is about done. Super simple, just straight lines. You can make it as thin or as dense as you want. So then for our next branch, we're going to also start with a straight line in the middle. And then this one is almost a leaf, but I'm still going to call it a branch because I use it like I do the other branches in floral arrangements. So I'm using kind of the fat part of the brush and dragging it away from the tip and pressing down to make these leaf shapes similarly at that angled, in those angled pairs like we had on those other branches, but these ones just kind of look like little leaves. And as you can see, I'm pulling the brush away from the stem and making those leaves, the leaf shapes. You can see kind of when you press down on the tip of that brush, it gets a little bit fatter, which is what's going to give your leaf the fat part in the middle. We'll talk more about that when we get to the leaf shapes, but you can also kind of do variations on this one and make it less dense, but make your leaves bigger. So you can see here I'm doing some bigger, longer leaves that are thinner, and I'm going to do fewer of them. And it gives it a totally different look, but it kind of serves the same purpose here. And so I really love how this one looks too. So yeah, basically, those are our 2 leaves. We're going to go back in here, I think, and add in a little bit of extra paint on the base of the leaves. Sometimes I like to drop a little bit of darker paint in there. It gives it some dimension, and if it's still wet, it'll flow and look really nice. I got a little mark there. Oops. But yeah, so it's just going to give it a little dimension. You don't have to, but it's always fun to drop in some more colors into your wet paint, because I feel like that's what I love about watercolor, is how the paint moves. But here you can see I'm going and adding little dots on the end of every branch. They kind of look like berries, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but I think they're super cute, and I use these in all of my floral paintings. They're just adorable. So I'm literally just going to go through and add little dots on the end of the branches. All right, so we just finished up the little dots on the end of that branch. It's super cute. You don't have to add those, but I think it adds a nice little flair. And now we're going to get sort of the leaf. So you can see I'm doing the same thing that I did on the leafy branches, where I'm taking the brush and I'm just dragging it, pressing on the paper and dragging it, and just kind of letting the water fill in that space, and give it that natural leaf shape that looks really, really nice. You can make the leaves as thin or kind of as full as you want them to. I'm going to do a couple other little shapes. It's just a simple, really, really simple shape, but you can do a lot with the shape. And you can see I'm taking a darker green and dropping it there on the end, which similarly to the little blue branches, it's wet and it's going to flow up into the leaf, and it's going to give it a really cool effect. So now I'm going to take that green again, and I'm going to make a smaller, fatter leaf. And those are really good for filling in space if you've just got one by itself. I'm also going to add in a little bit of dark paint by the end of it, and just drop that in there and let it kind of move. And then I'm going to add little stems on the ends of those leaves. Gotta have their stems. They gotta come from somewhere. And then I am gonna do a couple little baby leaves, which are also really good to fill little spaces. But you can see I'm just doing the same thing. I'm not pressing down as hard with the brush, and I'm just making little baby leaf shapes that I think are super cute. Gotta add little stems, and yeah. So now we're going to go back up to the flowers and do the finishing touches on those. So I'm going to take a darker purple color, and I'm going to go in the middle of those ovals and just draw little dots. Don't put them right in the center. You can kind of put them wherever on the oval to kind of give the illusion that the flowers are pointing in different directions. Then I'll add little stems to those, and that's the little oval flowers done. I don't really have a name for those, but I think they're really cute to do in different colors, and just add some fun little things. And you can drop in a little bit of darker, more saturated paint in the bottom too if they're still wet, and just kind of let that bleed up and blend in to give a little bit of more dimension and give it some shadow if you want. You don't have to. I don't do that in the little final painting that we are going to work on together, but it is a really fun little touch to add. So now for this bigger round flower that is going to be, it's going to be one of the main flowers we use. I'm going in with another layer of that pink color, and I'm just adding in another blob on top of this blob. As you can see, there is literally nothing to it. It's just a second blob on top of the blob. But that's one of the beautiful things about watercolor, is you can layer it and get that really cool effect. And I'm adding some Just some more blobby lines throughout there. That's kind of the key to painting flowers a lot of times, is just add blobs. So we're going to let that dry. And now that it's dry, we're going to go in with our other layer. Sometimes it's useful to have a hair dryer if you have like a little heat tool. You can do that. But now I'm going and adding in the little stamen. So I'm adding a bunch of little lines and dots in a darker purple color. Just any darker color will work that's going in the middle. And you can see those little spots, and then I'm going and adding in some little petals around that. And just dragging my brush across the paper. And I don't like how dark that turned out, so I'm going to go in with a paper towel and just press that. If you want to learn more about basic painting techniques like lifting, you can check out the Getting Started video with the DIY painting kits. I think that's a great place to get started. And yeah, I'm going and filling the rest of that in, and that is our finished flower. So let's take a look at these I'm going back in with the leaves here and adding in. This is another way to kind of add variation in your leaves, is to add in like lines and other little spots and shapes inside the leaves once they're dry. Like here I'm adding in little spots, and you can add in, yeah, see, that's kind of cute. And then you can add in little stripes over here too, just with the tip of the brush so they're really thin. And also, I didn't mention this earlier, but the key to making those really thin lines for the stems and for the branches and everything is just to use the tip of your brush really light, and you'll get your floral shapes like this. So, yeah.